It's a quiet Sunday evening in 1987. A government worker named Ramesh sits alone in his second-story apartment, drafting a letter to his parents. Then, a sharp knock echoes from the window glass. When he pulls back the curtain, he doesn't see a bird or a branch. He sees a woman, hovering 30 feet in the air, glaring through a veil of dark hair. Ramesh was a highly rational man. He worked for the railways, dealt strictly in facts, and actively mocked the idea of the supernatural. To understand how a man governed entirely by logic found himself cornered by this haunting, we have to trace the exact steps he took to put his family in danger. The trap was set a few months earlier. Ramesh had been transferred 1,500 kilometers from his village in West Bengal to a new post in Delhi. He wanted to bring his wife, his 4-year-old son Sarthik, and his 2-year-old toddler to live with him in the city. Relocating a family of 4 is expensive, so Ramesh prioritized one thing above all else: finding the absolute lowest rent possible. When he found a suspiciously cheap apartment in the Gandhinagar neighborhood, his sister immediately warned him that the local community whispered dark rumors about the property. Ramesh ignored her entirely. The elderly landlords were eager to have him, but they had one rigid stipulation. They demanded 2 full months of rent paid up front as a non-refundable advance. Ramesh handed over the cash, financially anchoring his young family to the property. Looking at the floor plan of this Gandhinagar property, the layout reveals how exposed the family was. Upon climbing the stairs to the first floor, they were greeted by a large open corridor. On one side of this walkway was the family's designated living and cooking space. Directly across from them sat a second bedroom. The landlords claimed this space was reserved for their son who lived in the US, and they kept it permanently locked. By securing the lowest possible price, Ramesh successfully solved his immediate financial problem. He also inadvertently placed his wife and toddlers inches away from a sealed room that the rest of the neighborhood knew to avoid. The haunting manifested in distinct, escalating phases. Almost immediately after moving in, Ramesh's wife sensed a heavy, oppressive energy hanging in the air. While cooking dinner near the entryway, she routinely saw dark shadows pacing across the corridor, their silhouettes falling perfectly over the door of the locked room. When she reported these sightings to Ramesh, he dismissed her completely. He confidently diagnosed her terror as nothing more than travel fatigue from the long train ride from West Bengal. With the father entirely unbothered, the phenomena pivoted toward the most vulnerable targets. One afternoon, the mother rushed upstairs to find her 2-year-old son sitting up in bed, laughing and actively conversing with an invisible presence hovering right in front of his face. Soon, the entity began testing physical boundaries. While attempting to nap next to her children during the daylight hours, the mother awoke to the terrifying sensation of her heavy winter blanket being slowly, deliberately dragged off her body by unseen hands. Terrified and lacking any support from her skeptical husband, the mother developed a desperate daily routine. The moment Ramesh left for his office, she would pack up her 2 young boys and flee the apartment, seeking refuge at her aunt's house a few streets away until the sun went down. The activity focused increasingly on the mother's vulnerability. By exploiting Ramesh's rigid skepticism, the entity ensured the mother would be effectively isolated, left to face the escalating phenomena without support. On a Sunday morning, the psychological terror crossed the line into physical violence. As the mother prepared breakfast, she heard a woman's voice whispered directly into her ear, "Get out of here, or I'll kill everyone." Seconds later, 4-year-old Sarthak was violently shoved off the bed by an invisible force. The mother scooped up her screaming child and bolted for the exit. As she sprinted down the corridor, 2 hands slammed into her back. She tumbled down the concrete staircase, desperately trying to shield Sarthak. The boy struck the ground, splitting his head open and bleeding profusely. Hearing the screams, Ramesh rushed out from the downstairs shower. Confronted with his bleeding son and terrified wife, his skepticism held firm. He aggressively scolded her, blaming her clumsiness for the fall and flatly ignoring her frantic claims that they had been pushed. That evening, the mother refused to stay, fleeing to her aunt's house with the boys. Ramesh remained behind in the Gandhinagar apartment, sitting alone in the dark to write a letter. Then, a heavy knock echoed from the window facing the empty rear alleyway. Assuming a thief was scaling the wall, Ramesh grabbed a stick and threw open the curtain. Instead of a burglar, he found a woman with wide, hateful eyes floating in the empty air. staring directly at him and demanding that he abandon the house immediately or watch his entire family die right there. It took a direct, undeniable threat of imminent death to shatter his ego. The ultimate skeptic dropped everything, ran from the building, and finally accepted the violent threat his wife had been facing all along. The very next morning, Ramesh confronted the landlord, demanding his advance back so he could break the lease. The elderly man refused the refund. Instead, he made a chilling counteroffer: send the children to the village for safety and let the adults stay behind in the house. Ramesh rejected the offer, forfeiting the money to evacuate his family that same day. Safe at his sister's home, they finally started speaking with the surrounding community to uncover the property's history. The neighbors revealed the truth about the locked room across the corridor. The landlord didn't have a son living in the U.S. He had a 22-year-old daughter. After her parents forbade her from marrying the man she loved, she locked herself inside that exact bedroom and committed suicide. Enraged by the social scandal, the parents chose to protect their reputation over their daughter's soul. Driven by bruised egos, they actively covered up the nature of her death and refused to perform her proper funerary rites. By denying her those final rites, the parents anchored their daughter's furious, vengeful spirit directly to the property. The bedroom where she died became a permanent epicenter for the paranormal activity they had just survived. The final piece of neighborhood testimony revealed that this haunting had turned fatal before. Months before Ramesh arrived, another family's young boy had been flying a kite on the roof when he was shoved from behind. Before dying in the hospital from severe head trauma, the child told doctors that someone invisible had pushed him. The low rent of the Gandhinagar property had come at a steep cost, revealing a hunting ground born from a family's pride. The landlord's desperate need to protect their social standing trapped a violent spirit in their own home, proving that the human cost of buried secrets is far more terrifying than the ghosts they leave behind.